Did you start that over? Do you think you got it?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Yeah, it's nice. Really nice. All right. If the clerk could please call the roll.
Trustee Eibert. Here. Trustee Frank. Trustee Abeglin.
Here.
President Gerke.
Here.
Trustee Dorwart.
Here.
Trustee Bartz. Here. Trustee Miley.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, seeing as though we have a quorum, we will move on. The next item is going to be for public comments. Please note that this is for anything that is not on the agenda. So if you would like to discuss anything that's not on the agenda, we invite you to come up, state your name, and then talk nice and loud for anybody that might be listening or for notes, minute taking thereafter. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. So are there any public comments for anything not on the agenda tonight? Hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda consisting of approval of the minutes of December 19th, 2024 Village Board Meeting, the general fund, water and sewer invoices as well, and I do not believe there are any additional bills.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
All right, I have a motion. I have a second. Are there any questions? We'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have a report on village committees. Tonight, we just have the Parks and Rec Committee with the chairperson, Trustee Bartz.
We had our monthly meeting last night. I think that's the last one. I met after the previous version.
Yep.
So we did make a change last night. There was a scheduling conflict with our winter walk that we had planned for February 1st. It is now going to be planned for February 22nd. We're going to keep the time the same. Hoping that we can draw a few more people out at that time frame. Hopefully there's some snow on the ground. And our DPW crew has been collecting trees for us to be able to have our bonfires. We're looking forward to that. We talked briefly about the trees that are currently up from our holiday decorating, tree lighting at Freedom Park. And I had a conversation with DPW Director Paulus regarding the trees that were there. He was going to check out the rest of the trees that are still standing and see if there's any that we can keep or if they need to be discarded for this year. And then we continued our planning for our 2025 events, mainly the Fun Before the 4th. We're getting our bands booked and we looked at getting our bounce houses booked. I worked with Administrator Jenkins and Trustee Upson. No, Treasurer.
Upson, yes.
Upson.
I was gonna say, I've heard Eibert pronounced a few different ways, but
That was
never
it.
Upson. Yeah.
To work on getting those booked for 2025 for the Fun Before the 4th. So we're really looking forward to it. And we have another meeting coming up here in February before our winter walk, and we should be plugging away.
Awesome. And what, I think it was the luminary walk through the school that was conflicting, right?
Yes.
I think it was the day before or something like that.
What time is the winter walk? It's from 5 to 8, so the time did not change.
Excellent.
Can I use this time to plug the upcoming survey?
Yes.
Do you want to share that or me?
Yeah, no, you can go ahead.
So we met with Paul Roback, whose name we've mentioned before from the UW Extension. He does public participation and surveys, things like that. So he's helping us craft a open space and park survey to give to our residents. Last time this was done was in 2017. We mailed surveys at that time and received a whopping 10 responses. So we're hoping with this survey, we can be a little bit more expansive with those responses and then use that data as we're crafting and updating our current open space plan. In addition to the surveys, we'll have a couple public information sessions that are scheduled as well. Again, just to solicit that feedback and then make sure that we're gathering all that good information as we plan future parks activities. So just want to plug that.
Excellent. All right. Are there any other questions of our Parks and Recreation chairperson? I will have a quick plug just saying that, we're always looking for people to volunteer to help us with the events that we're planning. Things might end up looking a little bit different as far as who's part of that committee come April. We would love to have any of the feedback and buy-in from anybody in the community, any of the newer trustees that are coming in too. If anybody wants to help with that, it's always a good time and a great way to connect with the community and move forward with it as we have done in the past. All right. Next, are we good with technology, you think here? Or are we? We're back. All right. All right, no
Glad
breaking
happened.
stuff. All right, we are going to move on then to presentations. I want to say thank you to both of you for coming. I know that you had gone over everything at the, I think it was the finance committee or the Department of Public Works before the end of the year, and I really appreciate you coming back and kind of doing it again for the full board. So that being said, we'll move on first with the wastewater treatment plant upgrade presentation from Strand. On top, yeah. Right by your finger. There it is. Now hold it for, there you go.
Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Bill Baduzdik with Strand Associates, so I'll be going through proposed upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant. As you mentioned, I think I had several here at the Board of Public Works meeting, so a lot of this will be a repeat, but feel free to interrupt me during the presentation with any questions. I'll go through it pretty high level, try not to get too technical on anything. Like I said, if you have any questions, just stop me if I'm going too fast or need more detail. So agenda, go through the background of the treatment plant, proposed upgrades, costs, and then potential schedule. So this is an aerial photo of the treatment plant. It's a little probably hard to see, but red are the parts of the plant that were constructed in 1981. So those are the oldest parts. They're only 24 years old now. Yellow is this area. It's a sludge storage tank that was built in 1995. This blue color is a project in 2017 that added additional sludge storage in UV. And then 2019 is this building, which was the grid system upgrades. Slide. So this is the site plan of the treatment plant. The gray area where proposed upgrades are. The first bullet, convert primary clarifier and biotower to aerobic digester. That's these tanks here. Let me just run through kind of the treatment plant process for just so you have an understanding of what happens there. So initially, you flush your toilet, whatever, shower, dishes, all that wastewater comes in your main. Comes into the plant and it goes into the raw sewage wet well in this area. From there, it goes through a screen that screens out plastics, other larger debris. From there, it goes into the wet well. So this is kind of the lowest point. There's pumps in the wet well. They pump it up through grit removal, remove grit because the grit will damage pumps. From grit removal, it goes into a primary clarifier. So this is basically just a tank that allows solids to settle in. The heavier solids settle in this tank, they're scraped off, it's called sludge, and it's pumped into sludge storage tanks. After flow goes through the primary clarifier, it goes to what's called a biotower. So this is just structure 20-25 feet high, the water's pumped up to it, flows down through the structure, and removes organic load to the plant. It's called BOD. So that's removed, partially removed in biotower. From there, it goes to aeration tanks, which also removes BOD or the organic load. You don't want this going into the river. It takes consumed oxygen that fish and aquatic need. So you remove the biological oxygen. From the aeration tanks, flows to the final clarifiers. So these are circular tanks. The solids settle out in these tanks, and clear water flows over mirrors. Then it goes to this final treatment process, which is UV disinfection, where it's disinfected, prior to discharge into the Milwaukee River. And then that's what we call the forward flow process. And then on the solid side of it, the sludge, you're pulling sludge, pull sludge from the final clarifiers out of the bottom, and the primary clarifier, and those are pumped to aerobic digesters, and there the sludge is further treated, and then eventually it's pumped to sludge storage tanks, and then from there it's left applied. So that's kind of big picture, the processes of the treatment plant. Some of these processes, like dirt removal, was created recently. Others, like primary clarifier, biotower, those are vintage 1981. So first of all, again, primary clarifier, biotower are here. We've converted the primary clarifier and biotower wet well into an aerobic digester. Bullet point 2, convert aerobic digesters to an extended air process. So it's changing the process to simplify things. Removing primary clarification, the biotower, and creating what's called an extended air process. So instead of the wastewater going through here, it goes right to these areas, and you have more aeration. It's a lot more details could be talked about there. Basically, we're just trying to simplify the process instead of having to repump it out to the biotower. That biotower was put in initially because there was going to be like a higher BOE load contributed to the plant. I think you had said it's like a meat processor or something.
There was a slaughtering plant that's going to be located in
Yeah, so that's why probably back in 1981 they chose that process. Now it's kind of, you wouldn't put in that sort of process for the loads, for the type of wastewater that is in the village. Third bullet point is add a third clarifier and basically RAS is a sludge pumping station. Fourth bullet point, replacing mechanical screen, upgrade room to current standards. So the screen is more recent. It was replaced in 2001. I'll get into that in a little bit more detail later. Add equalization tank for hauled waste, and then a building addition. So you can go to the slide. There'll be a little more detail in some of these pictures to show you. So convert primary clarifier, biotower to aerobic digester. So this is the primary clarifier. The wastewater comes in here, flows the length of the tank, drops into a wet well, and then it's pumped up into this biotower. This is the sludge into the primary clarifier. So this can get odorous. So over the summer, I know there were some odor complaints. Removing the primary clarifier would help with odor complaints. Next slide. Convert aerobic digesters to extended air process. So basically, right now, 3 of these tanks are what are called aerobic digesters. You convert all 6 to the aeration tanks, and then that gives you that treatment capacity to be able to remove the biotower. Next slide. So add third clarifier and RAS pumping station. So it provides additional redundancy, improve operational control, and provides some additional capacity for future growth. The third clarifier would go somewhere in this area is where we planned, and then there's some ancillary structures that go along with it, the splitter structure and the RAS pumping station. So here's what the clarifiers look like. This is just the cover, and below it is basically a circular tank. Water flows into. Chemical phosphorus removal. So this you add at the plant, ferric chloride is added to remove phosphorus from the wastewater. It's a permanent requirement. It's something that phosphorus creates algae blooms and rivers, lakes, whatnot. So that's why it is required to be removed. The existing chemical room is in the back of the garage at the treatment plant. It's a pretty small room. It's 44 years old or so. A lot of this, you can see like the eye wash is very corroded. A lot of the conduit, whatnot, is all, it's seen, 44 years of life, harsh environment. So the new chemical building is what's proposed here. It'd be a brick and block type building. Located near the final, or near, located in this area. There's some space in the site, current any underground piping and other utilities. This would be, the chemical phosphorus would help is to improve overall kind of safety when handling the chemical. There's some cool things here that would be brought forward. And it's also be a little bit more volume, so we can take a full truckload. Each time. Mechanical screen, so replace mechanical screen, upgrade room to current standards. So the screen isn't as, it isn't vintage, 1981, but it was installed in 2001. Typical useful life for this sort of equipment is about 20 years. So it's already past what would be kind of the book useful life. So this is what the screen looks like. Wastewater comes in here. There's openings that the wastewater flows through, and then the larger materials and plastics are conveyed out to the dumpster. The room it's in has wooden roof on it, so that's something that we look at replacing. The space is also a hazardous space for explosion. That's why these lights are like this. So some of the stuff in there isn't rated properly, so this would be kind of brought forward as part of screen replacement. And then there's various types of screens too that would be looked at to replace the type of screen that's there now. Last brings all waste equalization tank. So this would allow the hauled waste are like a septic truck or porta-john truck, those sorts of things. So they come and dump, if they dump and it goes right to the head of the plant, it can cause upsets. So this would allow it to be dumped into the tank and then kind of slowly be fed into the plant. So it wouldn't be an upset. Repave the entrance road, potentially add a garage, for cold storage, building addition with a fire hydrant, and then replacing the generator to an outdoor generator. Currently, there's a generator in the building that is also 1981 age. Now, the one costs. So we put kind of a ranking, and this is what I put for a ranking. Eric may have different opinions on it. But number one would be primary clarifier, biotolerance restoration, aerobic digester, and then convert aerobic digester extended air. So these kind of go hand in hand. If you don't do this, then you're going to be sinking money into the primary clarifier and biotower. The biotower is literally falling apart. I don't think anyone's really comfortable going into that structure anymore. So that one, this is that place at the top. I mean, not to say any of them are not important, but that would be the most probably pressing one. Chemical phosphorus removal, I have second. So the existing space is very tight, it's full. So this would just make things a lot safer, easier for Eric staff to work with the chemical, just to safe environment. Third one at third clarifier and Ransford pumping station. So right now, the two clarifiers are pretty much at capacity when you have peak flows. So the third clarifier would give you more capacity for peak flows. And then this last summer, Eric had replaced some parts in one of the clarifiers. And when you're running on one clarifier, the plant's really vulnerable to either big wet weather event, washing out solids and just creating upsets in the plant. So having that third one would allow clarifier to be down and out of service for an extended period of time and not have to worry about wet weather or something impacting the treatment process significantly. And the Raswest pumping station is just updating right now, the control and the sludge wasting. It's just manual for the valve. This would automate it, which would be something that you have better control of and without somebody out there actually. Moving it out. Fourth one, this is a relatively minor cost. Existing final clarifier improvements, so this is basically adding a baffle system to help with settling clarifiers. So this would be one where it'd be nice to do to help with the phosphorus limit, but probably not as urgent, and definitely not as urgent if a third clarifier. So repave the entrance road, add fire hydrant, add break room office control building, new garage. These are all kind of not necessarily process related. So I lean more on Eric for his expertise and place these as far as the importance. And then replace mechanical screen. I have this down further, mainly just to get, might be able to get some more years out of it. Certainly, it's one of those things that would be wonderful to replace. Again, leaner here to say if he's had recent issues with it and those sorts of things. Then other ones we didn't put a cost to, the equalization tank, the generator. That's still above, sorry. And then, I know I didn't talk about this one yet, but adding a mixing valve, a flushing valve for the wet wall, that'll break up scum in that wet wall. So the total for these items is the 6.2 million. So that's obviously a large cost. That's kind of a summary of the various items. Is just a potential schedule. It's gonna be really hard to read, but I guess the key dates are if you want to build this next year, September 30th is when plans and specs are due to DNR. This would be eligible for principal forgiveness, which would be 10% of the project cost, would be essentially a grant, so you would have to repay it. So $5 million project, it's $500,000, so it's significant. So that would be the key date, and then construction duration we know is about 18 months. It depends on what was included. Some items like generators, large electrical equipment, that can take a year until just the shift to the site. So 18 months is probably the minimum. 2 years might be that time. Project. Oh, that's a lot. Sure, time.
Is it getting easier to, get building materials and get them at the site and apparatus and machinery and stuff like that, valves, you name it?
Yeah, I would say
If that's a
all
blank
that's
sheet, then
improving. Electrical are still the main items that are holding projects. Getting the motor control centers is usually the item that holds it up. We've got projects where we're getting, you know, the mechanical screen, we're getting that equipment, or we have the electrical equipment that's actually fine. Past, that was never the case. Usually the equipment was the thing that took the longest. But yeah, valves, piping, rebar, general building products, those are the holding projects.
All right, do we have any questions before we get to the other part of this, which happens to be sewer rate study to figure out how the heck we're gonna pay for this? Thank you very much. And obviously, I was gonna say, if you could stick around, that'd be great. All right, so now we move on to the sewer rate study with Ellers. Thank you. Hi.
There are several packets, in there, the one that we'll go through is the presentation. There's two other packets that are really like detailed behind what that means. Well, the presentation is that first slide, which is recommendation, maybe stats, we don't need to go through that. But the go by here, are looking to do the treatment plans upgrade. Evaluate first there's a revenue bond coverage specifically for your sewer debt, it's a general obligation. Revenue bond coverage, requires a certain amount, that you have to maintain of net revenue, so that's your cash revenue plus your cash expenses. That amount needs to be a certain amount of your annual debt payments. But we might consider more, if you're all in debt coverage, considering that general obligation. So making sure you can cover all obligations for the sewer. Just quickly our process, we go historically where you've been the past 5 years, we go on just 1 year that you have a high maintenance year or low maintenance year, so we go historically where you've been, take where you are, make projections on this operating maintenance, where the depreciation is gonna go with your added assets, and then how you can fund the projects, the same debt or cash, and then we look at the rate impact on an average residential user. So when we're looking at the revenue adjustments, we go to the next slide. For a clean water fund loan that is a 1.1 times coverage, so the net revenue that we're speaking of, that needs to be 110% of the annual debt payment. So you need to have that 10% of your debt payment for any revenue debt. In our analysis, we were looking at a total of a $5 million project with $500,000 of principal forgiveness. So clean water fund loan for 20 years at $4.5 million. So the annual estimated payments is about $295,000. So your net revenues need to be approximately $324,000. For your 2023 audit, the revenues available for your debt service was just over $400,000. So that is sufficient, but looking at your 2024 budget, with increases in operating maintenance and lower revenue. Again, we're going to want to consider that all the debt coverage has to maintain the need for the revenue debt. So looking at the next page, we have where the historical rate performance is. So that increase was back in 2019. And the 2020 was kind of funky, where we had our refinancing next year. So what's more negative with the higher debt payment? There's two ways to look at a revenue requirement that we're going to discuss. Is cash basis, which is the true cash expenses. You have your operating maintenance, your debt, and any cash under capital debt, debt or some other source of finance. So those are your expenses plus any other revenue or interest income that determines what your revenue requirement is. So that's where your user rates need to be for other obligations. As you can see, for 2024 budget, your user rate revenue would be at 671. The budget is 738,000, so it's not sufficient currently. And this is without even adding this project. Currently, right now, your rates are not sufficient to meet all your obligations. What budget numbers for adding October. Then there's the utility basis, which we're not using for this. Typically, you can do that with sewer, but with water, being regulated by the PUC, that's the method they use. And that's just your operating maintenance depreciation. And then what they call this net investment rate base, which is basically your unappreciated assets. And then earning a rate of return on that to determine what your revenue requirement is. Go to the next slide. Looking at your financial indicators, again, we can more looking at that 2020 that refinancing. So if that, but beyond that, we do have sufficient reserves. So that's what we set a target at. It's 6 months of your operating and maintenance, and that includes depreciation and 100% of next year's debt payments. The operating ratio concerns the system, hence why you are with these upgrades. You can go to the next slide. Looking at your future capital, so from 2024 to 2028, you're looking to add about 6.2 million of assets, with a unappreciated value currently in your system at 4 million, so you're looking over 50% increase over the next 5 years. Then doing the cash flow analysis, if you want to go to the next page. So starting from the top, chronically up to the right here, the top portion is your total revenue from your user base. And below that, we're showing any of the increases, what percent that is, and then that dollar amount increase. You have your other revenues, your total revenues, and then we have your expenses of operating and maintenance. So then the line that is net before debt service, capital expenditure, that is the important line that we need to maintain above your debt payments. And then below that, we have what your existing debt services, what I need projected, which is basically just for the water fund loan, payments for total debt service. You just have a small transfer out, into your general fund. Then we have what your capital projects are for the next 5 years. So we go. This is but in 5 years, there are capital projects in here. Focusing on the first 5 years, each of the projects, and then issuing debt in 2026 for the clean water fund, and then what your annual net cash flow is. Below that, we have the cash balances, the restricted and any unrestricted, what it was at the beginning of the year, whether you have a positive or negative net cash flow, and then what it is at the end of the year. The bottom lines, we show that all in debt coverage, where we want to consider general obligation and any other expenses, making sure that this line maintains above the 1.1. Plus, some buffer, because we have a high maintenance here, operating costs, and so you want to have a buffer so that you make sure to maintain above that level. So we have all in coverage, we have where you are with our cash benchmark of that 6 months of operating maintenance and that appreciation. Where you are about that. So you currently don't have any projects shown in the future, but you potentially will be able to distribute cash that sometimes be able to do with some smaller capital projects. And then below that is the revenue debt coverage. What you maintain well above the revenue debt, and most of your other debt is general obligation. So more important to look at that all in debt coverage, make sure you maintain above the 110, or more 1.25, 1.25. Any questions on?
Yeah, while we're on that page, was anything looked at as far as the loss of Diane O'Neill, our biggest water user?
Is that October?
That's very, very, very recent. That's a,
Yeah. Yeah, because that's both usage and storage and machinery and revenue and the whole, they have an effect on every aspect of our finances.
Mhm.
Correct.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm wondering if our contingency that we're going with is enough to soak up some of those things, or if we should take another look at a few things.
You would want to consider taking a look at things that's already, like I said earlier, your rates are not sufficient to meet your current obligations. So that's without considering rates. So now you're losing a large user like that, your rates are definitely not sufficient, more insufficient for you than more of an increase in what we should.
yeah, we were going to talk more about that during the discussion period. So, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Go to the next slide. This I'm showing you, but we're gonna look for the cost of service study done. But based on just adding that flat increase across the board, we really need our target is to volume metric. By the end of the increases, needed for your clean water fund loan, you're looking at almost $288 per quarterly bill for an average residential. Keep that number in mind, I'll keep that again when we look at the results of the cost of service. So if you go to the next slide, I'm gonna just talk more on this slide and then just through the detail of this. So when you do your rate set, we talk a lot about that cost of your money. So we look at what your operating maintenance costs are, what your debt will be, and your cash funded capital, and we're determining that amount that your rates need to be to create that revenue. So there's detail behind that, I'm not gonna throw the slides. Once we know how much your revenue department is, we do a cost of service. So those are separating out those classifications. You have residential, you have commercial, you have public authority, you have those different classifications, because you want to develop rates that those are causing the cost, should pay the cost, to make them fair and equitable. So then we allocate those to the customer classes, and then using that, we design the rates, creating a new meter charge, meter size, and then one volume metric range. So we can skip through these slides, the requirements, cost service, rate design. We'll stop here on the phase 10. So what we developed was a three-phase in corporate rate. This would need to be vetted. It would be water fund loan, vetted by the way that they would allow it. Because with regular revenue issues, your rates need to be in place at the time of opening. Because you don't have any other revenue debt, the state can be more flexible in allowing that if you approve rates by closing, that it will be sufficient. They sometimes let them raise this in. So this could very well change depending on they say, but right now, with that in order, that would likely allow some sort of phased in rates. And then looking at the impact, this is by different users, but looking at the average residential, this is for 2025, you're looking at about a $31 increase over that. And you look at all phases, and if you go to the next slide, we're looking at $104 paid, but a full bill for an average residential user of just under $258. Or we went back to where you just do a flat percent on your volumetric, and for fixed costs, they were looking at more like $288 for the average residential. So you can see how allocating the costs appropriately, you would get different rates on these housing costs. So you're looking at, for the first step, we had about a 20% increase, and it varies again by customer class, and in the end, we had about a 70%.
You don't.
Yeah. That's definitely pretty good.
Still,
That's what all, everything published.
they publish, right,
That's
right, they published it, but they're still looking for somebody to possibly buy, so they're still actively going through that stuff.
yeah, they might not be big warriors. Even though plant that's set up and stuff like that.
You know, we can discuss that. All right. So I guess this is we'll start the discussion here in a minute. Do we have any questions for our rep from Ellers right off? Perfect, thank you. I think, we'll move on right away to our items for discussion and or action. I want everybody to know, we're not acting on this tonight, so this is something that I want us to have a good discussion with. We need to figure out a few things, I think. First of all, we need to get our hands around what is currently 100% needed at the wastewater treatment plant. I know that there's a list of priorities. I think, you know, we always rely on the people that are around us to help us make the best decision possible, which is why we have all of our experts in here and our DPW director. So I would like a candid conversation, I think, between all of us and to figure out what is needed right now, 100%. I know we did our tour of the wastewater treatment plant. This is something that since I've been on the board, we've been dealing with, right? 2019 is when I came in and we did our last sewer rate increase. And here we are now in 2025 going, no, we haven't raised them for so many years and we've not, you know, we haven't been where we should have been anyway. So I guess in that aspect, shame on us a little bit, but at the same time, you know, things happen. So we can't go in the past. We can only move forward and we have to decide what's best, you know, for our citizens. I don't know that necessarily the easiest thing is always the best thing. It's gonna hurt, you know, no matter what we do, but we need to at least make sure that what we're doing right now is being responsible with what we have. So Eric, I would really ask you, you know, we've got this priorities, this list of priorities. I would like to hear from you, and maybe it's putting you on the spot a little bit, but you know, what do you see as an immediate need? What do you think we could do without for a few years, or what do you think that we need to do right now?
The direct lead right now is the primary clarifier and bottom power surveillance.
Mm-hmm.
That would be. Bill has the number one.
Yeah.
I think the other stuff can wait. You know, I mean, I don't like seeing the numbers that are proposed either. I mean, it's a huge hit.
Yeah.
But. I mean, we had clarifier for them, which was 170,000 fix.
Yeah.
They're banding together. I mean, we could make it work, the process, get it better, but.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, but we have to think also what happens should, God forbid, one of the clarifiers go down and then all of a sudden we have a high flow event and we can't keep up with it, right? And so far, correct me if I'm wrong, that hasn't happened at all, right?
I mean, last summer, turned out to be traffic.
Yeah.
Dry summers.
Right.
We got all that rain in spring.
Yeah, we do.
Very wet spring.
So we've been kind of walking that line for a while on a lot of the things that we've been doing. I guess I'd like to hear, you know, from other board members too, and obviously nobody wants to raise rates just to raise rates. But again, we have to do what's in the long-term best for the village too, I think, and we really have to put that hat on right here, right now.
So my opinion, I wrote up myself a couple of notes. Not as a board member, as a private citizen, this is my opinion, is that we look at these numbers and we see that we're in a deficit. So absolutely shame on the board and the previous boards for not raising the rates to make our finances equal. So we can't change the past, but how do we make sure that we are staying accurate going forward? I want to make sure that when we make this decision is also made with a plan going forward for the next 5 or 10 years.
Mhm.
We look at rates every 2 years or every year and make an adjustment as needed. We can't keep getting into these situations where we've band-aided things for so many years. For 40 years, we're band-aiding this stuff, and now we're looking at a $6.2 million hit. That's not fair to anybody. There's so much expense in this, so. With that, even with the upgrades for the plans, what has been planned for in the past? Is there anything in any of our budgets that has accounted for any of this? And I'm assuming the answer is no. And then going forward, how are we making sure that we can account for this? We have to stop band-aiding things year after year after year. This is absolutely kicking our butts every time we come to the street.
Yep.
I'll address that a little bit with respect to, we did basically by the seat of our pants for so many years. We would have engineers comments and stuff like that, but we would, I guess, if I got and kind of figure what we should do as far as rate increases, and we look around and see what everybody else is like. This is what we did to find out how we were doing it wrong. And we also found out what process to do it. Now, we did enjoy very decent water rates for a number of years because we weren't where we were supposed to be as far as charging for sewer and for water. So that doesn't help us now. But it's not like it's not like it was a big, huge mistake. It was just now we're gonna have a major increase, whatever. To address your first question, what are we gonna do in the future? We will be doing professional finance advisors, sellers, or whomever we do. And we'll be doing the same thing we're doing now to have found all our mistakes and all the catch up.
Yeah,
One thing is to keep yourself up it's too much. I mean, COVID was a huge factor. You know, if you had done this project that happened in 2017.
Yeah, it's easy.
$3 million.
Yeah.
Stuff has just gone up like crazy, especially in this industry in the past years. So some of it you just couldn't have seen. I mean, you would have known in 2021, you should be doing this or we can get killed in 2025.
well, not just the wastewater treatment plant, though. I mean, we've known that rates were not where they need to be for a while, right? And I think a lot of that is you come into budgets and you go, oh, we're gonna do this, and well, you know, this is already a hit on the taxpayers and we don't want to give them anything more and all, you know, all those things, which sound like good excuses, but at the end of the day, to Tiffany's point, you know, people don't, I think a lot of people don't realize that the utilities, so the water and the sewer, they are utilities, they are in a sense their own companies. And I feel like people just think, well, the village board is just gonna raise rates. They're just raising this to raise taxes on us. And that's not true, right? But we have to have those hats on to think about what's gonna be best for not only taxpayers, but also for the utility, right? It's a business. And I think that I don't think that we've done our best at that. I think that we kind of mingled the two a little bit and, you know, said, yeah, taxes have gone up a little bit, or, you know, we've got some other budgetary concerns, and well, we just really don't want to add that on right now because it looks like another tax or whatever. So, I think this is our opportunity. Yes, like I said, you know, things have been done in the past, but this is our opportunity to set it off on the right foot. And I guess for me, I don't want to leave this chair with this problem for the next board. I really don't. I think that it's our responsibility to think about it in a smart manner and take care of it before we leave, one way or another.
I'd like to say that 20% for the next 3 years, I think is stringent. I don't doubt that we need to raise the rates, but we need to give these residents a break. We need to look at this from the point of view of the average family out there. They can't afford this. So we've already had our taxes raised. And for some reasons, it was probably good. The EMS project was probably a good thing. A lot of people got their rates raised or their property tax rates raised because of the reassessment rates. I know that having your assessment rate go up, that's a great thing, but now you have to pay higher taxes now. And now inflation is up through the roof. Now we're asking our residents to pay 20% every year, next 3 years. And yeah, we dropped the ball, but are we going to make our residents pay because we dropped the ball? So I'm not doubting that we need to raise the rates. I think we need to be reasonable. And 20% to me is just not reasonable. We need to go back to the drawing board, look what's reasonable, what we need to do improvements to the wastewater treatment plant. We know that's important. But right now, people are taking it. So, you know, they are experiencing financial pain right now. And to inflict more financial pain on people, that's not our job. Our job is to make it easier for them. Improvements are needed, but let's be reasonable. 20% is not reasonable to me. Either string it out further along to maybe a 5 to 7 year plan, or make, you know, the improvements that are absolutely needed. And I'm not saying not do these improvements. Let's be reasonable about this so that our citizens, and I'm sure there's some citizens here that want to voice their concern about this. But let's do it for them.
I think Lisa had a comment there.
Yep.
You're gonna take this out. We'll get that. If you had any other open market security rather than the bond that way, your increase. You need to prove that your rates are sufficient to make whatever revenue that comes. And if you do open market securities, it's in one. There was time to get earlier that when you close and it's too late, you may not even get it in a year. Phase in. You do this project, you need to close on your own. You may get 2 years of phasing in, or the required that all that will come. So we're not having any other revenue yet. It's really more about it. So I just have to make that clear that you're gonna get your revenue yet, you're gonna have to prove that coverage by.
And I'm sure you're very competent at what you do, but try to explain that to the average citizen who's gonna have to pay 20% extra on their sewage rates. And some families, there's some multi, you know, we have families that have 4 or 5 kids. It's gonna take, I have one that lives in back of me. They're concerned. They're concerned about this. You know, you explain that to them. I don't understand any of that language. I'll be honest with you. But we have to explain this to the average citizen, why we are raising their rates 20% after all their taxes got raised, right? And inflation is going through the roof.
That's all I was trying to do there. Well, that would be no, but had you done 3%, 5% increases over the last 2 years, the amount of increase needed at this time wouldn't be that high either. Not to go on the path, but just saying that, I just want to make that clear that we'll need to make sure that there's sufficient to do.
I just think that there could be something more reasonable. 20% is just, to me, is outrageous.
And
So-
then the last thing that I think that we want to do is have a situation like what Washington had where they raised their rates. What was it, 167%, something completely outrageous.
Mhm.
We don't want to do that 100% for certain.
We're not Port Washington.
We are not.
Yeah.
We don't want to have a situation like that.
Port Washington's a little different.
Ask me or tell me if I'm wrong, that regardless if we do this project or not, our rates are still insufficient. And we still have to make an increase in rate at some point, somehow.
Right, and to make the point that the rates aren't sufficient as of right now to meet the coverage. And that's 2024 budget, when you look at the prior years and that rate historical performance show that the rates on cash. And if that facility is not sufficient. So in this process, are going to have to increase rates. Doing it on a revenue pledge, you have to meet that debt coverage requirements.
Yeah, but we don't have to do everything on there too. That's the other thing.
Yep.
And that may save us a little bit.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right now, it's a tentative. We can get two, or do I have to do it all?
And that was my point of saying what I said in the beginning, right, is there's some things in there that, for lack of a better term, as far as I'm concerned, are a little bit fluff, right? I mean, oh, a garage and paving this and doing that. I mean, those things aren't, it's not gonna, the village isn't gonna fall down, you know, we're not gonna have issues with discharge into the river and things like that, you know? But there are some things that literally are falling apart down there that we do need to replace, which I know you recognize, right? But regardless, you know,
My thing is just do the basics
right,
and let's raise rates at a reasonable pace here.
right. But what I think what we're
I mean, I
getting,
was astounded when I saw 20%
I know,
at first. And I was shouted down. I didn't appreciate that.
Well-
Because I'm watching out for, you weren't there to
Yeah.
see it, but I was astounded.
sure. I understand that, right? And I get that. I'm just saying, if we need to do some of these things at the wastewater treatment plant, we can't just do them and say, well, we're not gonna raise rates and we're just gonna live with it
I
because.
didn't
of that.
say that. I said
know you're not.
reason. Yeah.
I know you
Reason.
didn't, just please. All I'm saying is, you know. Well, I agree with you, right? I've got 3 kids. My sewer rate is extremely high. I've got a preteen girl that decided that she wants to shower every morning, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day now, right? So my rates have gone through the roof, or not rates, my bill's gone through the roof. That doesn't change the fact that if our infrastructure is failing us, that yes, it is our responsibility to take a look at something, even if it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
And it sucks for the taxpayers. I get that. I am a taxpayer, right? Same thing with my assessment and the EMS and everything. Every single time we do something here, it impacts all of us. It does. And it hurts, right? I mean, we're not just, it does, but you know, if we, again, we've been doing it for too long where we let things go like this and oh, we're not gonna do this, we're not gonna do that, because yes, it's gonna hurt and all that, and everything hurts, right? It is, but that's our responsibility to make sure that we aren't Port Washington in 5 years because we haven't done anything in 20 years, and then all of a sudden the whole plant goes to hell or burns down, and now we've got to raise them 300%, you
And
know?
again, we're not Port Washington.
I didn't
But
say
we
we're-
look at those warning signs, but we also have to look. There are some people who are not as fortunate as us.
I get that.
That it's tough on them. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do any infrastructure improvement. We do need it.
I'm just saying
That's part of the job of government,
that is,
but we need to do it at a reasonable rate.
I 100%
Reasonableness
agree.
is my emphasis.
Yep, and I 100% agree. If we did nothing, where are we at that we would need to bring our rates up to where they should be to cover it?
That was, I believe, 17% around there.
But, but higher than looking at.
Mhm.
And again, this, your 2024 budget did have higher operating and maintenance.
Mhm.
Um, 2023, your usury revenues, looking at your rental revenue of 60,000, so it looks like in that chart, the revenues are going down. But that wasn't typical, it was something that happened. Where, okay, there was a 60,000. Anyway, so it looks like the user rate revenue is dropping, but it's more in line with historically.
Mhm. Right.
Are we gonna open this up to public comments?
At this
At this
point, we're not, no,
Okay.
but
See, the figure that we're talking about, the even number, the 200,000. That was somewhat of a working number that we started, you gotta start someplace to figure from. And that was, something that, I don't know, Phil came up with that, or someone came up with that, well, it's gonna be in this neighborhood, so we grabbed that neighborhood and said, okay, let's start figuring. And it's coming out a little more than that. And it would be a lot more if we did everything on the list, which I don't think we have to do. But this and the water department, they're not profit centers for us. They're actually not even businesses. They run like a business, but they're utilities. And the water's regulated. That means we have a lot fewer things that are at our discretion. And the sewer utility is a hell of a lot more expensive. Because to a certain extent, the INI, the clear water that's infiltrating in there. It affects a number of different things and it reads different and it causes us to do things that we wouldn't have to do if we were more concentrated flow and stuff like that. I mean, we've talked about that. But it's not like we're making so much of a profit on this every year and people are saying, well, why don't you just cut your prices a little bit because everybody else says that, you know, we need a break. We can't do that because we don't charge a price out of our profits. Our cost of doing business is what we figure the rates are. And we are in a hole already. The last couple of times when I know I was one of the ones that always said, well, why don't we just throw 5% on there every year or something? You know, it's just a little bump, nobody will notice, and it blends into the rest of our bills and everything. If we'd have done that for 3 years, we'd be 15% ahead of where we are now, and we might not be working on the whole. You know, so it's what you do now or you don't do now is going to have an effect on what you need to do or don't have to do in the future.
You know, a lot of families are in a hole too, so. Just,
So when they can't flush their toilet anymore, they're gonna be,
well, that's not gonna
really-
happen. Don't be ridiculous. Come on, Don.
well, it's not gonna.
You're going to the extreme.
But.
We're talking about doing what's reasonable, okay? All right, not cutting off and doing 0% rates.
Well, like when she was referring to the different years where all of a sudden your revenue goes down and this and that, that's the people, to a certain extent, that's the customers monitoring their own usage. Because they gotta cut that bill down, so they monitor their use. You know, when you put an increase in any of your fees, that's one thing you always notice. You always notice a drop in gallonage or a drop in usage to a certain extent, which people are reacting to that higher bill. Once that becomes assimilated into their bookwork and they get it rearranged, well, then you'll notice that it goes back to what the quantities used to be, and then it goes up from there.
I'm sure everybody's watching their use of water and electricity and stuff like that, because times are tough, so.
I'd like to hear, do you have any comments or anything, or Chris or Natalie? Anybody?
I was just gonna give you guys some talking points here. So just so you guys understand, and I don't know if you missed it, so in the list that Strand gave, that total was 6.2 million, okay? Yep, yep. Already in the numbers that we have, Eller's working with, they estimated 4.5. So we already kind of did that practice of, well, we're probably not going to do all the things on this list, right? So that's how we got to that $4.5 million number. So just so we're all clear, even if we did that 20% increase per year, that's not even covering $6.2 million worth of stuff. It's only covering 4.5 of it. And then just on kind of future proofing ourselves financially, and I don't expect all you guys to know the budget like the back of your hand, but for example, in this year's budget that we have, I'd say 50% of our sewer budget is for things like maintenance, outside services, which are when contractors come in to fix things. So we definitely are investing more, which is probably why our costs are going up as well. But at least we're acknowledging that we need to do more of that stuff with cash on hand. And then at the same time, we're still squirreling away money into reserves. So when she said that we have a healthy amount of reserve, that's a good thing, right? Because then when things break, we have some of those dollars to tap into. So I just wanted to paint that picture for you, that it's not all doom and gloom and that we're actually doing kind of okay. And then I think a good way for you guys to approach this, and you guys were touching on it a little bit, I would really just look at this list maybe here over the next couple of weeks, those prioritized items, ask good questions of Eric here, so that we can come back and have a productive discussion on, okay, which one of these things do we actually want to do? And then once you guys dictate that, that'll dictate the rates, right? You'll feel more comfortable about what numbers we're going to end up settling on when you understand which of these priorities you want to accomplish. So that'd be my advice, that we can obviously continue to discuss.
And I think what would be helpful if Director Paulus could do this is go through this list. I know we talk about, these are the priorities. But what does that look like year wise? So if we do the primary clarifier and the bio tower and just the second one on the list, how much longer do we have before we do the chemical building and the RAS-WAS pumping station? What is that time frame? Can we push that out for 2 years? Can you give us that kind of time frame on what we're looking at? When does it have to be done by? What's your suggestion? Is there any flexibility in that time frame? I think that will help us make a decision better as well.
And I know the permit expires the end of 26, and that will also dictate what I have to do. Because if they bring stringent numbers that I can't meet right now, I mean, stuff's gotta get done.
So if you could give us timeframes on that, this whole list, that would be fantastic.
And we can get into a situation where the DNR can make it way more uncomfortable for us than we can hold it for ourselves. I mean, that's part of our job too.
Right. So I think what I do want to do now is, I do want to hear from anybody that wants to speak from the audience to this at all, but what I'm not gonna do and I'm not gonna tolerate is a back and forth and yelling at people and all that stuff. So if anybody wants to say anything, I'd say, let's have a couple minutes to say where you stand and all that stuff, and then we'll move on to the next person. Everyone will get one chance to talk, and then after that, we'll move on with our agenda. So if anybody would like to, step up and talk about things and kind of maybe give us an idea of your thoughts, I think it'd be good for us to hear. We always like to hear comments from the public, so. Anybody? I mean, I think the general consensus is right. I mean, we don't want to pay more. I get that. So,
Yeah, we don't need it.
yeah, so.
Nobody wants to.
Oh, no, I'm right there with you, I got the teenager athlete
Mhm.
showering. Very long showers, so these are gonna be seriously affecting
Mhm.
me, and I know I'm not alone, I know there's a lot of people. Kids that age.
Yeah.
And other special needs, so we do have to take this seriously. And, being prudent about the upgrades that we do choose and when,
Mhm.
I agree with that as well.
All right. Is there any other discussion we want to have on this right now? Obviously, this is going to be coming back, but I do think it's going to be prudent for us to get that information from our DPW director. Ask good questions. I encourage all of you guys, this doesn't have to just be on board meeting night, right? I mean, reach out. That's why we have all that. We've got professionals here to answer any other questions. We've got Chris too.
I just want to make sure we didn't skip over the Guy and O'Neill stuff because we had brought that up
Yeah.
earlier. So real quick, and then for those who don't know, so Guy and O'Neill is one of our largest manufacturers here in the village. They had announced that they were shutting down their operations if they did not find a financier by the end of the month. So we're sitting here January 9th. I know that they're entertaining 3 or 4 buyers, so this could be all for naught, right? And they'll have a new financier and they'll continue to operate just fine. If for whatever reason they don't, right, they truly shut down those operations, while of course there's a personal impact and tax impact as far as this discussion goes, they are one of our top water users and sewer users. So we have to keep that in mind for capacity. And then 2, I think Clerk Johnson had calculated roughly, was it 30,000 of revenues? What's that?
Their top quarter usage over the last 4 quarters was about $30,000.
Yeah, so that's revenue that obviously the utility wouldn't be receiving.
Mhm.
So we'll worry about that, right, when it's time to worry about it, but I just want to make sure that that was, on our mind too, as we're thinking about this.
How does, speaking with them, how is the industrial park going to affect this once we get the building, everybody starts building and starts moving in and all of that?
Yeah, luckily none of them are going to be major water or sewer users. I know that Eric and I've talked about that as the different developments have came in. I mean, none of them are a large scale business like Guy and O'Neill. So I can't imagine that any of the new businesses would really impact the system too much. It's not like they're a paper manufacturer or something like that, right?
How is that gonna affect the financial side of it? Or is the new industrial park gonna help if Ryan O'Neill does not find a buyer? The new businesses in the industrial park, are they gonna be able to make up that difference that Guy O'Neill is doing right now? So maybe there's not a huge effect that way, that balances out. We just don't have the additional.
I think that it's gonna take an awful lot. It's gonna take a heavy water user, I
Mhm.
think, to balance out what they're doing right now.
I'm saying all of the businesses together.
Maybe, but I doubt it. I mean, just knowing what the tree service and, you know, things like that that are going on, I mean, they're flushing the toilets a few times a day, whereas Gan O'Neill's pumping like crazy, you know?
Yeah.
So but we don't know. I mean, tomorrow we could get approached by, I don't know, Kohler Company who wants to test all of their stuff down here or something, right? I mean, how fantastic would that be? But can't project into the future. I think that, but we, you know, for that point, we need to make sure that we're thinking about those things moving forward.
We need to have some buildings built in there,
We're gonna
which are gonna be,
this year.
which will to a great extent exceed, what they're required and, what we're figuring is the required part, not the exceeding part, so, as that starts to happen and they start to put up buildings and they're worth a lot more than they said they gotta put in, that the tip will start looking a lot,
Better than it is. right now.
more reasonable. I mean, this is
Let's hope.
always a scary part, the first 3-4 years of the tip.
And I'm sorry, just one more thing. Lisa provided a chart that I put in front of you guys that compares nearby municipalities and their utilities. So if you look at the column that says volumetric, that is their rates based on the billing and frequency units and all that extra stuff that you can take a look at. But that is where you can see our comparison, how we compare to these other ones that she was able to find, both the current and then what the proposed increase would be.
It's a big jump.
Yeah, go ahead.
We've always hesitated this one though, how they compare to their neighbors. But it's never apples to apples. Whether it's water, whether it's sewer, every water, if you're getting your source of water, treatment plant and processes, the number of customers you have, the type of customers you have. All of these things play into what rates need to be. So I just want to put that plug in when you're looking at your neighbors. There's many things that need to be considered that you're not exactly the same in your customer makeup, in how old your treatment plant is, to any of those types of things. Caution when you are comparing.
Chris, just a question, you know, because they said that Port Washington raised their rates, what was it, 60%?
64.
Somehow that, I mean, I don't know math as well as I should, but why is it only 3.68 then?
It's like that wasn't updated.
Yeah, just based off of publicly available information, and I'm not.
But they just raised them now,
They were gonna do 2 increases too, right? They got one in and then another.
huh? So that is low then, my eyes didn't deceive me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just looked it up. In 2023, they approved a 67% increase for water rates, not sewer in Port Washington.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments on this? This is obviously going to be coming back before us in the near future.
One other kind of rate comparison, usually the ones at the top of the list are the people who've done recent upgrades. Plays out, then they fall down
yeah.
over 20 years, and then they jump back up to the top, and they fall down. And then, she's saying there's a lot of other factors. You guys are probably smaller in population than most of the other communities, you don't have that economy of scale. You know, 2,000 residents versus 13,000.
Well, we haven't had any substantial building in the last 20 years either. That doesn't help.
All right.
So moving on to our next meeting, how would you guys like to see this agendized? Like what actions? Do you want another discussion item? And maybe Michelle could talk about the resolution process. This would end up being, if you choose to go that route, you
Yeah,
let us know.
I mean, I think it's got to be more discussion, right? Because we're still sitting here not knowing what we're gonna do. So I think that I think we have to have all the information in front of us. Obviously, we know what it would take to do the whole thing all at one time. But from what I'm hearing, you know, it sounds like we want to look at different options and see what we need to do and see if we can get those things in front of us. Maybe two options, right? Doing the first couple things and then doing the next together or whatever, see how that all looks and then do another comparison and see where we'd have to be. That would be my thought. Have another discussion on it and, you know, we can talk about the resolution process and how all that would go, but, yeah, I think more discussion is needed on it personally.
Yeah, originally this was supposed to be a three-phase
Mhm.
redo of the whole plan, so now it's turning into a continuous, which I suppose it's probably gonna be, and maybe will always be that way from now on.
Could be.
And that might not be a bad thing.
Mhm.
So you just get your money from a different source, that's all.
Yeah, well,
As long as you have a clear plan,
Right.
regardless of how we do it, as long as it's a clear plan, is better than what we're talking.
All right, I think we're gonna move on then. That's okay with everybody? The next three items on our agenda are all items that have to do with the CIP, the 2025 CIP. So all this stuff was budgeted for. And we are looking to make purchases now. So the first one would be a motion to approve the purchase of a CD 80M dry prime pump dewatering, basically a glorified trash pump. And if anybody doesn't know what that is, feel free to ask questions, but it was approved in the 2025 CIP for a purchase of price not to exceed 35 grand. Eric, I don't know if you want to give us a little rundown on this or if not. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Here's just a little more expensive. Solids. So if I need to pump all the solids tank, I don't need to get a contractor in and pump for me. This pump would also too act as a lift station that if event of a power failure, or the SCADA system goes down and I lose my heights, I can run this and this would act like a lift station.
Mhm.
And obviously be temporary. And then also too, I could have used it on Fillmore, I had a sewer backup. We could have pumped from one manhole to the next till we got the other one fixed. That is my name, that is there.
Well, so this is like a trailer model.
Yep, trailer.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the said dewatering trash pump.
Second.
Not to exceed $35,000.
Second.
All right, I have a motion. I have a second. Are there any other comments or questions? Call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next is a motion to approve John Deere front mount snow blower cab not to exceed 65,000, also approved in 2025. Again, Eric, maybe give us a quick rundown, just a reminder of what we're looking at.
Stop for a second, I apologize. So Jess, are you there? Jess? Jess, if you're there, can you unmute yourself, please? Okay,
That was a phone.
so I'm not sure how you want to proceed.
So she did, yeah, she's using chat right now.
Oh,
She did make a comment, I just read it, that she doesn't want to talk or she'll have a coughing fit.
okay.
But she is here.
So then we can't count her towards the quorum tonight, which is fine,
Mhm.
right? Because if she's gonna vote tonight, we need to do roll call vote.
It does not sound like she's going to be voting
Yeah.
tonight.
And that's okay.
Yep.
I can't read what that says. Is she okay with that?
She has not responded to that comment. It says on here.
For a second, I thought you were leaving.
I just had a cancer treatment too.
Oh, okay.
I'm freezing too. It's okay.
That's cool. Or override.
There we go.
All right. here. Said she tried to unmute, but you apparently couldn't hear her.
Oh,
It was nice and warm when I came in.
Felt the opposite. I was feeling a little. Yeah. I don't feel it anymore. See what draft is coming out.
Do you just want to do a roll call vote for each of these and she can type yes or no?
Yeah, we should be able to voice her message into the record, right?
okay, team. So we have a motion and a second. Can we do that again?
For the last one you're saying?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Sure. I'm okay with doing that. We will do a roll call vote, for the motion and the second that was already created. Just a reminder, the motion was to approve by trustee Dilworth and the
The
second was from
Trustee Miley.
trustee Miley. We'll call the vote. I'll start down by trustee Eipert. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We're gonna be waiting for Jess then?
Jessica?
Great.
Yes,
Aye.
that's an aye from her. Perfect.
Okay.
All right, motion carries. Full support. Now we'll move on to the motion to approve the purchase of the John Deere front mount snow blower.
This will be replacing the current cab model that we have. A little bigger, has a salter, has a few more things, so instead of going through with the one that we have now and then going back through with the other one, there's one back through that. And replacing the.
And from what I understand, this one is also not so big that it eats up the grass on the sidewalks, right?
Yeah, the other model that was quoted, the snowboard was wider than some of our sidewalks, so we had a smaller.
It's not gonna roll down the hill when we're using it to cut grass. Is it?
No.
So Eric, just out of curiosity, if I'm looking at the right thing here. Oh wait, maybe I'm not. Nope, I'm not. I was gonna say I have a estimated net price of 67,215. That's the third one. That's what I was gonna say. All right,
Yeah, the estimate in the packet says 65.
perfect. I was too far.
And when would this come in, Eric? Is this the one that, one of them that we pre-ordered?
Yes.
Okay.
He does have it, it's not in yet, but. They're there, I think all three tractors, any of them on there are there.
So is this a mower at the same time too?
You cut grass with it, but we'll have a room. We have room on the older one, but the guys were saying that. We're eligible, they got rid of it.
Okay.
So.
That's
We're
where it all-
looking at ourselves, we intersections and then we'll paint lines, so,
Just saw a snow blower out here. Let's see. Part about a mower, because there's quite clearly a mower attachment to it. Sounds good to me.
And looks like this is all approved in the CIP. And the budget that we passed.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of a John Deere front mount snow blower cab not to exceed 65,000 as approved in the 2025 CIP.
All right, I have a motion and I have a second. Is there any other discussion? Anybody dying to say anything about it? All right, then we'll call the vote. We'll start down by trustee Miley. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And Jess, looks
Aye.
like an aye.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Finally, we'll move on to The approval of purchase of a VACCon sewer trailer mounted jetter not to exceed 100,000 as also approved in the 2025 CIP budget.
We entertained an idea of doing a truck. Obviously, more money. I didn't think we would get the exact use out of that. And plus some of the manholes, especially on Fillmore, they're into the yards to take a truck into someone's yard. Like to do more landscape than I have to. Found a nice trailer unit, and this will be replacing the trailer unit we have there.
Be limited in how deep it can draw, like catch basins and stuff, manholes.
Well, for the sewer jetter, this got 500 feet of holes. So this is just cleaning lines.
Okay, it's not like a backhoe though.
No,
All right.
And I see in here, you have noted that we've had two backups. Where'd that go? Within the last 6 months that we need an outside contractor. Rough idea on what that cost to fix those.
I did get the one from Fillmore, and I don't remember what salt line was.
Did that just come in this week?
Like they came in maybe October, November. I think he works with, he's pretty good on, you know, it was actually the owner of the company that came out with it, and it was a trailer jetter, so. I wanna say that one was under $2,000, cause that was only like 230. Fillmore will be a little bit more.
I think the Fillmore one came in. I thought it was above 3,000.
Weird.
The trailer is not just for backups, this is supposed to be routine maintenance that, you know, the guys will go out, pick a section, they go out this month and do this subdivision or whatnot, this is stuff that we're required by the DNR to do. And I think last year we spent in 12,000 for routine maintenance. Some people.
Questions or concerns or anything that anybody wants to address? Now's the time to ask.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the VACCon sewer trailer mounted jetter not to exceed $100,000 as approved in the 2025 CIP.
Second.
All right, I have a motion. I have a second. We will call the vote. All those in favor, start down by trustee Iper.
Aye.
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 And Jessica has affirmed an aye. All right, so motion carries. All right, we have correspondence, it looks like, for the Mid-Moraine Municipal Association dinner meeting, January 22nd, 2025. We need to know by January 15th who is all coming. Looks like it's being held in West Bend this year. There's a nice little map at the end of our packet as to where it's going to be. It looks like in a beach house.
Nice.
Yeah.
Too bad it's winter time and not summertime at a beach.
Yeah. Anyway, if
Beach house is still pretty nice.
if anybody will be going, please let our clerk know and she can get prepared for that. I will not be there. I will be actually on the beach probably.
Can I go with you?
Sure. So, all right. Is there any items for future consideration by the village board? If not, we are in order to adjourn.
No adjourn.
Second.
All right, I have a motion, I have a second, and yes, Jesse, you got to vote on this too, so I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Just says
And she says aye. We're out of here at 8:30 on the dot. Thank you, everybody.
aye. Go better, Jess.